Who knows where the time goes?
Yes, good question. Right?
Renée, your distinguished career has spanned several decades. When you embarked on this professional journey, where were you hoping would be your destination?
Well, it's funny because when we're young, we really don't even know what we're asking for. We have a sort of a disembodied dream of achievement. And for me, interestingly enough, it didn't have to be in music. It didn't have to be in singing. It could have been in business or in any number of other fields. I just knew that I really wanted to excel in some way. That was the ambition. So, and then the beauty of what I do is that other than the typical musical engagements, which, the planning is a nightmare, as we all know. I mean, it's 5 years or 4 years out for opera. It has been over the years, 2 for concerts and other things, and then all of the events and recordings come in after that. But you can't plan for the Super Bowl or, next week I'm going to commemorate the 25th anniversary of the fall of the Berlin Wall. So those are the exciting phone calls that you get that you really can't say, oh, I knew I was going to do that.
So would you say that your view of your destination has changed? And can you maybe tell us some of the key signposts along the way which were very influential for you?
Well, it's definitely changed, and the biggest change, I would say, has been the fact that I'm in Chicago and working with Lyric Opera. I mean, that really, I know, that was something I really didn't see coming and wasn't expecting to be thinking about because I already had so much on my plate, and it's been an incredible joy and journey. Talk about journeys. I mean, I've learned so much. So that's been an enormous signpost and a surprise one at that. And then the other signposts, many had to do with specific roles, being in the right place at the right time, which in the early years is about tremendous risk and rising to the occasion when those opportunities appear. Whether it was singing Desdemona to Placido Domingo's Otello at the opening the season of the Met, or singing a very challenging Bel Canto role in Italy, or singing with Sir George Solti in London, which really put me on the map with recording. Those were each very key turning points that brought my career further along in terms of music.
And let's just remain with your singing for a little while longer. In your book, The Inner Voice, you talk very frankly about your struggle to perfect your singing technique in comparison to some singers, and I would say very lucky singers, for whom singing seems to come very naturally. Have you completed this technical journey, or will it last for as long as you sing?
I think I'm still learning, and certainly, the body evolves, our emotional lives evolve, our stresses evolve and change day to day. And a young singer came up to me 2 days ago and said, I sang for you, but I was a little bit under the weather. And I said, welcome to our world, basically. It's the classic, 6 great days in a year and you won't be engaged on those days. That's one of our inside jokes. So I would say that I love vocal technique. I love everything about singing across genre. It fascinates me. I listen to singers all the time. And I have wrestled with every aspect of my voice. In fact, if I did something, I would take on bad vocal technique just to experience it. It seemed like half the time. So it's been an ongoing wrestling match, I would say.
So it has changed over time. Do you feel you still have to change it? I mean, the development of your career, the roles you're taking on, and let's face it, we all get older.
Yes. It definitely changes, and I would say I have to be very careful about repertoire. I did nonstop new roles. I've sung close to 55 new roles. Actually, I lost count. And I also, you have to be careful about not singing things that are too heavy or where the tessitura is wrong. And every time I've sort of stepped out of my comfortable boundary, I've paid the price. Within about 6 months, something goes awry. So I'm still evolving. And what I would say now, in the aging process for voice, I would say that I'm less resilient, and not maybe not as consistent. So I'm much more conservative with my choices. I don't take very many chances anymore.
Have you, right from the start of your career, always been in control of what you sing? Have you an intuition of what will work or what won't work? Or did you listen to managers? Did you listen to singing teachers and coaches?
Well, I definitely, I'm a polar, so I ask advice of everyone and then make up my own mind. But that's one way. I think it's actually a pretty good strategy because you can gather a body of knowledge from a lot of people I used to go to, for instance, somebody who worked in the ticket office at the Met, who'd been around for a long time, and say, I was just offered this role. Who has sung this role over the years? And he could list them off. And I would say, wow, that must not be right for me because I would be which one of these doesn't belong. So simple things like that, you can make better decisions. I've only sung 2 roles I regretted singing, but nothing terrible happened. I just didn't do it again.
Right.
The mistake I did make was in year after year after year just doing too much. Too many new things.
But it's so difficult for a singer in the early stages of the career to actually say no.
Yeah, it's very difficult.
Very difficult.
Yeah, and
you
it
have
was
to pay the mortgage.
not really in my vocabulary.
Right.
The no word.
I don't think you're any different from anyone else.
Other than no to the wrong role. That I didn't like to be pressed or to feel that I had to sing forte all the time. It's boring.
Right. Now, just as you've explored technique for yourself, you've been deeply involved with guiding and educating and helping others, whether it's the Ryan Opera Center singers here at Lyric who are embarking on professional singing careers, or school children in the Chicago schools for whom singing and music probably will not be the means of earning a living. In the book, The Inner Voice, you say, fostering the creativity in children feeds the soul. How?
Well, first of all, it was so important to me. I was a very shy child. Nobody believes it now, but it's true. Teachers were actually concerned at how withdrawn I was. I was a bookworm, and so this whole piece of me that was able to imagine through books and dream has become incredibly important to me in life. It's what fosters creativity, which is the basis for success in all things, really, is problem solving. And I enjoy working with young singers and using the experience that I've had to work on everything from how to sing to what's mic technique, how to build a career, and now of course they have to market themselves and work in a digital world that is extremely challenging. Everything you do is on the internet the next day, and
there's no hiding.
There's no hiding, and you also want to be able to distinguish yourself in that world. So it's enormously challenging. So I'm thrilled to be able to help, as people helped me. My whole book is centered on mentorship. It's on the people who mentored me, because that was the single most important aspect to my education.
So when you do the master classes, which you so enjoy giving, do you find even now that just working with a young singer, you learn more about yourself?
Oh, I think everybody who teaches learns. There's no question. It reminds you of, first of all, of the foundation of what we do. So it's always good to be reminded, oh, that's right, I'm supposed to take a breath. Oh, right, I forgot about that. And it's very helpful in that respect. And it's also, our world, our careers force us to be very self-involved, over decades, which some people really take to heart. And that's where the word diva comes from. And to be able to...
But it's misrepresented these days.
Oh, yes.
Diva was never a bad thing.
It was never, yes. It was never a brand of toilet paper either. So it's definitely has a broader meaning now. I prefer the one that refers to the goddess.
Yes.
So, but giving to back in that respect of sharing and nurturing is it's an easy, wonderful thing for me. I enjoy doing it. And younger children, high school children in particular, the way they find themselves is so often through either experiencing art, which is such a gift, feeding the soul, or expressing themselves and figuring out who they are. I wrote music when I was in high school, and junior high through high school, and it was the only way, being shy, that I could easily communicate my feelings.
But often they hit the nail on the head to young children. They'll suddenly say something that we've never thought of, and it gets right to the point.
Yes, absolutely. The thinking
And they don't
is
realize
so
what they're
fresh.
saying
No,
sometimes.
I know, yes. And we're grateful, right?
Yeah. Here in Chicago, you've become passionately involved with the Chicago Public Schools Arts Education Plan and the restoration of arts education back into the core curriculum. Indeed, on Tuesday of this week, you attended an event here in Chicago with Mayor Rahm Emanuel to celebrate the second anniversary of the plan's launch. Why is the return of arts education and the arts into the core curriculum so important?
Well, I think there are two reasons. It's now been proven in studies that all of the arts really help children excel in the core subjects, which is, ultimately we want well-rounded individuals who are making a contribution to society based on their education. And so it was thought that the arts were kind of extraneous. And now it's really understood that they're not, that it's actually an important part of what helps people. Now, my mind is such that when I was a child, all I remember are in core subjects are what I learned through literature or art. I mean, that's what spoke to me. That's how I really understood information. So that's one piece of it. And I also think, frankly, that it keeps children in school. That's the other piece of it, is that if you have a reason to go to school because your friends are depending on you to be there for chorus rehearsal or for dance or because you have an art show that day, hopefully your parents are coming too, but if they're not, you have that peer involvement and that also that joy and that passion for something you love.
I mean, I remember when I was at school, I didn't go to a specialist music school, but the school I went to had 3 orchestras and choirs, and I played 3 or 4 instruments before I went on to music school. As I'm sure you did, why did suddenly the arts get dropped, do you think? Why did it suddenly become unimportant?
It's funny. It's happened in my generation, really, because I had phenomenal music programs when I was a child in public schools.
Me too, absolutely.
Really phenomenal. And I don't. I think along with everything else, it usually comes down to money, to funding, and sports, all of the language, arts, all of the things that seem to be able to be cut were cut. But this holistic view of education, fortunately, is coming back and is becoming more important. I mean, would that we lived in a society that paid and valued teachers above all else. I mean, when I pick up a newspaper and I see some of the horrors that are occurring in the world, I mean, to me, education is the answer. It's people having more understanding, having more a sense of history. And the arts give us also that Greek that Greek chorus of saying, we went down this road 1,000 years ago. It didn't go very well. So the more we can kind of connect to that, the healthier we'd be as a world.
And the terrifying thing is we don't want to find out that arts really are an integral part of society when they no longer exist. It's too late then.
Right, right. Well, God.
Yeah.
No, I don't. When that's happened too, when the arts have been suppressed too, there are dire consequences. It's the expression of freedom, really, that's so important. That gives you the ability to say what you need to say as an individual and as a society.
As is going on in New York at the moment. Now, as everyone here knows...
Was that what you're thinking
Klinghoffer.
of?
I was thinking of Klinghoffer.
Okay, that's another whole interview.
As everyone here knows, and from the response a little while ago, you're not only one of Lyric's most beloved artists, but you're also the company's creative consultant. When did it occur to you that this could be an appealing new journey for you?
Well, I had to consider the options kind of quietly. And at first I thought, well, this is crazy. I don't have anything to offer. You know, I really couldn't imagine what I could do. And then I remembered all of the lifetime of experience I've had traveling the world. And we, all of us, all of my colleagues have seen a lot of different companies, how they're run in different countries, the roles that various aspects of any company play. Because that's the advantage of sort of being from the outside looking in. And so it's evolved. I mean, it's really evolved. I mean, the relationship, obviously, with Anthony, with Sir Andrew, with Ken Piggott, with the wonderful staff, they've all taught me much more than I've helped them. There's no question. But it's been an incredible joy and a journey. And also the way the company is evolving now in terms of really, you know, and Anthony speaks so eloquently about serving the community and being a performing arts organization that really is here for Chicago.
Right.
You know.
So where would you like your role as creative consultant to take you in the years to come? And maybe not just you, but Lyric as well. Where do you think it would go? Where should it go?
I think one of the most important things is making sure, and it's a challenge, making sure that the art form of opera is relevant, is we're producing new works on an ongoing basis, that we are developing audience development is so incredibly important, I think. And also figuring out where we fit in today in terms of, because the mainstream has gone in many, many multiple other directions, and making sure that we still are an important part of Chicago. Chicago is one of the cultural capitals of the world, I believe. With this kind of theater, with the largest institutions being on this incredible world-class level, I just think the city, I mean, I was at the Art Institute this afternoon. That's how I spent my day. And it's the second time I've been there since I got here. And I just thought, what a collection. It's amazing. So, and I've been to several plays since I arrived, because this is my hobby. This is how I spend my free time.
Yes, you can relax. You can, you know, when the
Yes.
voice is singing, it's a very different feeling.
love
Isn't it?
it.
You don't relax the same way as you go to theater or an exhibition or the ballet or
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, I go to the opera all the time too, so I love that too.
But
Don't
it's a
get me wrong.
different thing. It's a different, because you don't switch off.
No.
I shouldn't say you switch off when you go to other performances either, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
It's a totally different
I do when it's
ball
great.
game.
When it's really great, I just let it take over, and other times I'm trying to figure it out. You know what's going on.
Well, I remember we were sitting beside each other at Don Giovanni just a few weeks ago,
Yes.
and at the end of an aria, we both looked at each other, and Renee said to me, "You and I breathed that with the singer all the way through. We took every breath."
We did.
And we did.
We did.
We really did.
I
We're
could
both
feel both of us going. Yes. I know. It's true.
Yeah.
We're not even the same voice type.
No. Now, on February the 2nd this year, at the Super Bowl, you sang for approximately 2.5 minutes and reached an audience of more than 111 million television viewers, which in European terms constitutes virtually the entire population of France and the UK.
Wow.
And also, to be fair, it must also be many more people who have heard you perform live throughout your career to date. How has this incredible exposure affected your career and your image as an artist?
Well, we've begun to refer to it as the Super Bowl effect, because there has been a big change. I would say, you know, even if I'm not Renée Fleming, but the anthem singer, there is some acknowledgement from a much larger public that I'm alive, and that can be very helpful. But I mean, just this year, the CD that's just coming out now, to have a PBS special, which is coming up. I think the air date here is maybe the middle of December, called Christmas in New York, and to have it be a pledge special, to have the kind of interest in the recording is unusual. So these kinds of opportunities have presented themselves because, and the window, by the way, it's a narrow window and it will close. And I'll be possibly, doing some other things that are unusual. So that's been really kind of fun.
Right.
I'm just happy I lived to tell the story because I got to tell you, the pressure to sing our national anthem live on television without any text is tremendous. It's tremendous. And I had to produce the segment in secret because the NFL made the announcement and they said, okay, well, you can't say anything to anyone. And yet I had to sort of organize the orchestra and the arrangement and what I was going to wear and tell everyone, you're sworn to secrecy, but would you please do this with me? And pull it all together. And I didn't really get the confirmation I was doing it until the 23rd of December. So there was very little to, everybody left town for 2 weeks. And then come January 2nd, it was scramble. That's a little post-traumatic stress disorder, I think, yeah.
Let's stay with image, but you talked about your dress,
Yes.
which has become an icon now.
Well, it's in the Smithsonian. So Vera Wang is a friend of mine, and I said, Vera, I know Fashion Week is next week, but I'm desperate. Please help me. And I thought she would lend me a coat. It was supposed to be 10 degrees. And she instead made this really interesting, wonderful gown. And by the way, I did walk on the turf in 6-inch spike heels with a platform. So that's how big those guys are.
Right.
They're huge. And she said, okay, I'll do this for you. And then we got a call a little bit later. The Smithsonian said, we really want to have the gown as part of our collection, the Museum of American History.
So you really have joined the First Ladies.
That's, yes, in a way. Yes,
Yeah.
It's a real honor.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
How do you think the importance of image has changed for musicians, and particular singers, during your career?
I can't even emphasize enough how dramatic the change has been because when I started, there was much more emphasis on singing and the voice. Now the emphasis is on really your theatricality, obviously the goal is the total performer. And what that's done in opera is, of course, made us young singers more believable in their characters and their roles, as we've come to expect from television and film, with perhaps an emphasis on type that is maybe not the norm, but the uber norm. Beautiful people, young people who are expressing the characters that they're playing. And the good news, I think, is that I love theater and I want to believe of the story. I don't want to see someone saying, I'm the diva reenacting Mimi. I want to actually believe that Mimi's dying. So the bad news is that I think it's encouraged companies in the world today to hire singers at maybe a bit too young of an age and put them into the limelight before they're seasoned, before they're ready, before their voices are mature enough to handle the pressure and they're mature enough to handle the pressure. So careers are not lasting the way they used to. So I would say lyric opera is a wonderful exception. Lyric opera, because the house is so big, has not done that and is not doing that, and is saying we're picking people based on their appropriateness for the role and their ability to be heard in this size house. So, but that is definitely the trend, And when young singers, when I go do a master class in a regional city and singers ask me, for instance, it's not really tolerated now internationally that singers are overweight. It's very hard for them to get work. So that has really changed. That did not used to be the case.
Now, you have a passion for breaking down barriers and popularizing classical music. In recent years, there's been a worldwide phenomenon of televised amateur talent contests, where unknown people are suddenly jettisoned to stardom. These people usually have had no training or experience, but because of their success on these television shows or talent contests, they become household names. Now, by contrast, your success has been the result of years of training and experience. Does this new phenomenon worry you?
Well, I just saw a trailer for the movie on Paul Potts, for
Right.
instance. A whole feature film about this young singer, but it's really a human interest story. I mean, nobody sings in the trailer, so it's not because he's a singer. But I would say, frankly, the more people know about any of the classical arts from doing it or having quite a bit of exposure and experience with it, the more they can appreciate what we do. I mean, my personal analogy is that I took home ec in middle school and I actually sewed my prom dress. It was a very simple affair, like a little bohemian dress. And so when I go into a costume fitting, when I'm wearing French pagne and a fully boned corset and 15 layers of highly brocaded fabric with trim, my jaw is on the floor with admiration for the people who are creating these costumes, designing them, etc. So it definitely helps us if people are, and in the audience has some experience with what we do. So there are probably fewer choruses. This 2 decades of not having as much music education, of people not playing instruments as much. It used to be that every upwardly mobile family in the U.S. wanted to have a piano, for instance. You were going to learn an instrument, and piano was certainly a highly accepted instrument and something that graced your living room and made you look cultured and cultivated. That's all gone now. You see pianos in dumps. So that is the thing that I think I would love to see come back. And I also think that people are listening to music a little bit less because there's so much in the digital world to take our time.
Right.
I find music transports me. It fulfills a need in me to be taken somewhere else, to have an emotional depth and emotional connection to art. And I want everyone, obviously, to share that same joy.
But do you think these days, I want to harken back a minute to these talent shows, that we've stopped differentiating between quality and success, and there's a real danger that mediocrity will triumph as a result?
Well, one of the things I've noticed with reality television, singing shows, and I noticed this with my own children's generation, is that high school students today are all really good performers because they grew up on American Idol. The Voice is more recent. And they know how to sell a song. They know how to really showcase. I mean, my younger daughter's high school shows, kids would kick off their shoes and grab the mic. And I just thought, when we were in school, we would be shaking and awkward and standing and murmuring and looking down. I mean, so they've gotten those skills. It doesn't mean they're singing very well. So that's a whole nother thing. So I would put it a different way. I would say that, because it's mostly popular music, I wish that our reality television would broaden its view of singing and have more examples of different kinds of singing, which you have in the UK to some degree, so that the people say, oh, that fits more with what my voice does. Or, I really want to sound like that person. And I have had people who have found me through these appearances and tried out opera and said, wow, I really love opera because I heard you on the Super Bowl. So it's just about maximizing the exposure that the audiences for those shows can have.
Right. You've had a spectacularly successful recording career. The record industry's own journey has changed it beyond recognition over the last 20 years. Yet you are one of the few classical artists today who records regularly. How can today's outstanding young singers enjoy your level of success if they're denied recording contracts?
The historic advantage to a recording contract was the marketing, was really having that record come out every year and the marketing that went along with it. And that's how stars were made historically in our world. And without that, it's very difficult. There's no question.
Because up until, what, 15 years ago, any up-and-coming singer, any new successful young artist immediately was signed up, was given solo discs, operas were being recorded,
Yes.
and now that doesn't happen.
No, and also the change in marketing strategy, which was that now everyone across the boards has to be sexy and beautiful. So every major instrumentalist also has the tousled hair and the dark eyes and the stare, and it's just really, it's really changed. It's so much more about image, and that can affect again if what people are actually hearing. It can have, but fortunately, there's a tremendous amount of talent. There are more people who want to maybe do what we do than there are people at this moment who want to hear what we do. So we need to sort of change that balance a little bit.
Now, in the inner voice, this might need some explanation from you, but in the inner voice, you describe how your horse called Windy and your spider monkey called Jethro taught you that there was no dream too large or too exotic to be realized. So were Windy and Jethro right?
Okay, so let me explain this. So, bookworm child, horse fanatic. We've all known those girls, right? Who look out the window and dream about the horses. My parents bought me, they didn't know anything. They were high school vocal music teachers, so public school teachers, and they bought me a horse, which came up on Christmas morning in a trailer to our suburban tract house, split-level house, and out popped this very mangy-looking young foal, which we found out later was impossibly injured, et cetera. So, and I understood the concept that it was a horse, but I also thought, it's not the black stallion. I'm not sure I'm really, I'm really that happy about this. And then my parents, the horse lived in our garage. So we have photos of it in the kitchen, actually. Until the neighbors complained, and that was the end of that. When the zoning police came and said, "Mr. Fleming, just what are you doing with this horse in the garage?" So, but we embarked as a family on a learning, and I eventually not only did I show statewide and teach horseback riding, but you learn so much discipline, and we cared for them, et cetera. So it was fabulous for all of us. The monkey was a mistake. The monkey, was in a department store. I think my mother wanted it too. It was a little spider monkey. We took it home, thank God, on a 3-day trial basis. And at the end of 3 days, I said, "You can take it back now, Mom." So we were in over our heads.
This creature swinging on your curtains.
But the point is, my parents were really wonderful about, just making me feel that if I really wanted something, it was possible. And, that's what we do also when we're working with young people as individuals and saying, who are you? What are your gifts? Oh my gosh, look what you just accomplished. On an individual basis, that is the gift of what the arts can do for young people, is that sense of accomplishment that's performing. When you perform and you stand up in front of people, there is a lot at risk. It is hard. It is frightening, and then you get the immediate gratification of applause. Also the anxiety of whether that might not happen, and that's the beauty of that. And yes, I do still feel that way.
Because your journeys continue. So, what would you say are your large and exotic dreams for the future?
Yes, large and exotic dreams. Well,
that's what I'm quoting
yes.
the book.
But the beauty of that is I don't know what they are. I feel that things unfold. I have a great amount of trust now in life and in our ability to generate things that occur from just being open, from being open to experience, from working very hard. I do have a tremendous work ethic, and I think that's incredibly important. But in fact, my daughter's here today. Amelia, where are you, honey? Oh, yes. Yes. One of the two girls, yeah. And she could probably answer that question
Well,
even
actually, you've preempted
even
my next
more.
question.
Yes.
But yes.
Yes. So I really don't know. I feel incredibly grateful and fortunate right now to have these options, to be able to think outside of myself and beyond to what's possible and what I'd like to see happen for the arts, which is this sense of growth and this idea of valuing what we do. I would love for that to grow. I would love for people to say, wow, you know what? Yo-Yo Ma, Wynton Marsalis, these are my idols. These are men who are humanitarians, who think theoretically, and who are really making an enormous contribution to culture and to American culture. And, I want to keep moving on that track.
Now, a singer is obviously more than just the performances. You've mentioned Amelia, but you actually have two very talented daughters.
Yes.
What have they taught you about the world and your career?
Well, sadly, my daughters made sacrifices for my career also that they did not ask to make. And it's because I wasn't home every day. So this was an enormous challenge. I mean, I think the biggest challenge of my entire adult life has been balancing those career goals with making sure that my daughters felt loved and cherished and felt that I was there for them, even if I couldn't be in the space on a consistent basis. So they can tell you more if I achieve that. I can tell you that I'm proud of them, and they've turned out phenomenally well. They walk on water as far as I'm concerned. So, but that has been no question the hardest thing. And they taught me, and they also both came to Capriccio last night, and Sage said, gosh, I didn't realize I liked Capriccio so much. I didn't realize it was funny. So, because she had seen it a couple of years ago, and they've come to my performances my whole life, and their whole lives, excuse me. And they also, Amelia said earlier today, that she has very powerful, strong memories of being in Chicago, because I debuted here 21 years ago. And so they were in school here a couple of times for short periods of time. And that makes it, and we really found wonderful things to do. It's a great city for children. Other than I remember them walking out the door on a cold winter's morning with the wind blowing, and the two of them were maybe 2 and 5 years old, and they just promptly burst into tears. Like I was doing this to them, making them suffer in the cold. I said, girls, wait inside. The cab will be here in a minute.
I'm going to open the discussion up for questions from the audience in a minute. I have one final question, which is probably not an easy question, but I think it's an interesting question. You are enjoying a tremendous career, but do you have any regrets?
I suspect I really don't have any major regrets. I'll tell you, the whole trajectory for me in recent years was given to me by Leontine Price. We go back to mentorship, right? I met with her 3 times for 3 hours at a time, where she really basically preached to me and pounded the table a lot. And I sat there and I took notes. And she said, I just feel strongly that you need my advice, and you need to hear these things from someone who's been in your shoes. And I found it incredibly helpful. And I've listened. I've been a very good student over the years. So regrets, there have been small ones. I wish I would have taken more control of my career earlier on, and not waited for someone to tell me what to do. And I was always looking for that, wise advisor. But in fact, my trajectory has been unusual all along. I have chafed against the expectation that I would sing traditional repertoire consistently, or if at all. I have chafed against the idea that I would not sing outside of my genre. And I have forged and pushed the limitations of what I do on every front. And so if I had just sort of accepted that I needed to have the courage to do that earlier on, I would have probably done a better job of it.
Okay. Let's have some questions from the audience now. We can have the house lights up, please. There we go. Someone will come with a microphone so that we can all hear. So the lady here in the third row with the blue sweater.
I wanted to tell you that I took my teenage daughter to see you in one of the HD Met Live presentations in the theater. And I've seen other National Theater Live presentations. While it's not the same as being in a theater, to me it was transformative, because to be on the stage and see effectively on the stage and see the expressions on the performer's face and be in the midst of the opera as opposed to removed from it and then you were sitting in the house was a wonderful experience. It was a wonderful way for me to introduce a child to opera, because sitting in a movie theater was less intimidating to her than going to an opera house. I'm wondering just how you feel this whole new role of film, bringing the arts to a broader audience, because financially it's more accessible and you're reaching audiences that don't have access to opera where they live perhaps. How you feel that can make a dent in your goals with expanding opera and culture into the world for children and for people in general.
I agree that the Met HD broadcasts have made opera accessible geographically in places where there is no opera house, all over the world, and it's expanded the audience certainly for what we do, and they do it very well. I mean, I've been very moved because you can see the expressions. I mean, you know. Most of the time I think it's an enhancement, and we're at Lyric Opera now and Capriccio for selected performances having large screens up in the balconies with the exact same method. So you come and you hear a live acoustic performance, but you're seeing our faces. And I do think that we as a culture have come to expect a visual experience. You know, our generation grew up with television, and we want that. Right. And we're moving much more in that direction, I would say. But it's a great introductory way. It's certainly, I mean, if you can have popcorn and wear jeans, it's less intimidating. I mean, people don't know that you can wear jeans to the opera. I keep telling them, just go.
Well, it's actually better than that. At the Second City, you could actually have a martini and watch it as well. I thought that was really good.
Yes. I'm all for that. I'm doing it on stage,
Yeah,
right?
you're doing it on
and the
stage,
martini
absolutely.
at the end of Capriccio. Now when I go to a restaurant after the show, they say, do you want a martini?
So it doesn't really matter the difference between words and music. It's all really about,
It's
how
about,
dry
yes.
is the martini?
Yes, I'm learning.
How would you assess the state of opera across the country and in Chicago in particular?
Well, I think I think there are a lot of challenges, and it's not just opera. First of all, the state of opera is great in that the quality is great, the level is great, the amount of integrated productions in which all elements are on a high level is wonderful. I would like to be useful in the star-making piece, so there are more American singers and more singers in general who have a chance to become well-known, to have a platform for being useful in terms of culture. But I would say that the biggest I believe the challenge we face is not a decline of interest for the arts. It's an increase. I mean, a huge increase in the number of options that people have with their leisure time. I mean, I've lived in New York for a long time, and now there are performance organizations on every block. I mean, they're in Brooklyn, they're in New Jersey. I mean, they're everywhere, and it's fantastic that we have all of this available culture. But what's on your television now with 1,000 stations instead of 3 also has increased what's available. Most young people aren't even getting cable. They're watching everything on the internet. So that's really the challenge, is getting. But there's no substitute for going into a hall and having a shared cultural experience. Something you can talk to people about, something you can feel something over. I don't want empty entertainment. I really, once in a while, I want to learn something or feel something. I want something to affect me deeply. And it's the arts that can do that for us. There's no question. So I don't think we're going to lose. I think people are going to come back, and they're going to come willingly, and they're going to really enjoy it and want to be out and about again and not sitting at home every night.
Hello. Hi there. We are so lucky to have you in Chicago for as long as we get you. Yay! My question is, knowing and what you just said about in this space in particular is a beautiful performance hall, will we get to hear you in something outside of the lyric?
In Chicago, No. My performance schedule's online. It's on my website, and I'm performing all the time. No question. In fact, I can't announce it yet, but I may have something really unusual coming. So keep checking back. In the next coming weeks, it'll be announced.
Well, the
But,
Berlin Wall is very exciting to sing
The Berlin
there.
Wall is very exciting.
Yeah.
There are a number of there are a whole bunch of things coming up that I'm not allowed to announce because they want to, be the ones to announce it. So just keep checking in. Yes.
Yes.
Go ahead. Okay. The demographics of the opera today. I look at the opera, I see a lot of people with grayer hair. I see a lot of people that probably, I come in jeans, but I see a lot of people who are they can't afford it anymore. I mean, the demographics of it and the price is driving the younger people away. How can we get the younger people back in? How can we set up some sort of a reduced fare for those people to come in and enjoy this opera?
I am so happy you are asking this question because we now have several programs. We had the Next program, which is specifically for college students. For $20, they can come. But now there are several programs between Next and between ticket buyers and subscribers. And what I've noticed hugely with Capriccio is that there are a lot of young voices laughing out loud and reacting and bringing a huge amount of liveliness to the performance. And they're getting in college students and high school students. I also last night had a whole delegation from the CPS Opera Club, so high school students, and they see every opera. So get the word out, please, because it's really changed. It's already changed. So if you go online, there are all kinds of ways that people can get in and see opera for their level, their economic level. And we have to do this. And plus, it livens up the atmosphere. There's no
Absolutely,
question.
it does. Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Hello. Which restaurant in Chicago is your favorite to enjoy martinis with?
Do you know, I have had some amazing experiences here. Unfortunately, Chicago is too good a food town. I just pray from performance to performance that I can still get into my costume, and it's getting very iffy. Very iffy. But I won't list a favorite because for me, I'll tell you, my favorite restaurant is the one that's quiet. It's the one where I can speak and not shout and hear people across the table. And I don't know why this has gone out of fashion everywhere. I mean, there have been articles printed that say studies prove that most people want to go to a very noisy restaurant. Maybe they have nothing to say. I don't know. I don't get it.
No, I agree. We have time for one more question.
Hello. My question is about the strategy of the lyric opera to make the last performance of the season a musical. What are they trying to accomplish? Is it to gain up? No, I think it's great, but is it to broaden the audience, bring people? What is the reason?
Well, Anthony and everyone at Lyric Opera have executed this idea I had when I first came far beyond my wildest dreams. And it was basically to say, there are some art forms that are specifically American that have earned the right to be classical. And one is the American Music Theater, which has been around for a century. And the great composers of that, from Irving Berlin on, filmed through the Gershwins and through all of Rodgers and Hammerstein, et cetera, Mosshart, on and on. There's a great body of work. And I was influenced, actually, by Sweeney Todd, that was produced at Lyric Opera some years ago with Bryn Terfel. And it was phenomenal. So I thought, why not make this part of the season, every regional house? Because what I was noticing is that my children's friends had never heard of the titles that we take for granted, many of us. You know, whether it's The Sound of Music or even the major titles, they don't know them. So to me, that's a crime. So you have to wait for a Broadway production that tours. That's the only way to see it. And it's been a huge success for Lyric Opera. It's great for also the city of Chicago to have access to these musicals being performed with a full chorus, full orchestra, with a complete gamut of kinds of singers, and with all of the forces that we have at Lyric Opera. And I also think that 18 million people watching The Sound of Music on television last year bodes very well for the future of this initiative. Peter Pan is unfortunately in New York competing with my very own holiday telecast, so I don't think anybody's going to watch me, unfortunately. But I'm glad you asked that question, and I think there's room for all of these pieces to be enjoyed and seen.
But also what I think is very interesting about the choices that Lyric are making is that they need the operatic treatment. Not every musical is ideal for that.
Well, you know, it was Bonnie Raitt telling me the story of her father, John Raitt, who some of you may remember. When he retired completely from singing, she said he walked around the pool singing German Lieder because that was his education. He was educated informally in classical music as a singer, and then he became a great Broadway star. So that used to be the tradition of singing. And singers in that era were also not amplified as we are not amplified still to this day. So there's a lot to be shared, as you said, in this with this operatic treatment.
Yeah. So where does the time go? Where has the time gone?
Yes, yes.
Renée, it's been a real pleasure.
Thank you very much.
Renée Fleming.